Hey everybody, this is Rayflick, television beat writer for Bleeding Cool. Welcome you to our review of the first three episodes of Hulu's Castle Rock, the Stephen King shared universe horror anthology series brought to us by Sam Shaw, Dustin Thomason, J.J. Abrams, and Stephen King. And let me start off by saying, whether you are a Stephen King fan, a horror fan, a fan of quality acting, of cool anthology series, Castle Rock's first three episodes get this series started off on a strong, really positive note. Full disclosure, I was very excited about this series when it was first announced. I've been a big Stephen King fan, but I also know a lot of times Stephen King works, whether they're adaptations or based on or variations of, can either be really great or really lousy. So I was hopeful but cautious, but the first three episodes, Severance, Habeas Corpus, and Local Color, are really quality. I want to jump right in. There's going to be some spoilers. I'm not going to be doing full recaps or anything like that. Just to give you a general idea, that Andre Holland plays Henry Deaver. He's a death row attorney who is brought back to his hometown of Castle Rock, where he harbors a lot of childhood secrets and really just bad blood with the town, to represent a gentleman played by Bill Skarsgård, who is found at Shawshank Prison. Found, you'll understand why I'm choosing my words very carefully in the description, and that's just a basic description. I don't want to give too much away, but when I talk about why this was such a quality series, I'm going to be touching upon some things, so just again, tread carefully. Right off the bat, positives. Writing and directing. I want to make sure I give these people enough credit. For writing were Shaw and Thomason for first two episodes, and it was, and make sure I got this right, Scott Brown for the third episode. Directing for the first two episodes, I know it was Michael Uppendahl, and for the third episode was Dan Attias. I want to make sure they get a lot of attention, because the writing and directing sets a pace that keeps you watching. These are dense episodes with a lot of things going on, but they don't insult your time and they don't insult your intelligence. Things move at a pace that makes sense, especially when you're looking at a 10 episode series. People aren't left trying to figure certain things out. I'm not saying it's perfect, and there are a couple cons I'll be talking about in a couple minutes, but the writing matches the intelligence of the viewer and also gets the viewer to think a little bit more. There isn't anything that throws you. There isn't anything where you go, really. It's things that make sense. Even if you may not think they make sense in one moment, you see how they all loop back around. So I give credit to the writing and the directing. Also, I want to say this too, the look of the episodes. I have to give a lot of credit, because I feel like I'm watching a movie, and I feel like essentially that I'm watching It, the big screen, most recent version of It. That's what I feel like I'm watching, and I think that's a lot of credit, especially with Hulu, with still really getting into the game to want to be on the Netflix level. It looks like there was money, time, and serious love and commitment invested in the series. So I give them a lot of credit overall. That's one of the best strengths of the series going into it. You'll notice it right from the very start. But it's the acting, folks. There's no other way for me to phrase it. It really comes down to the acting, and it comes down to the acting on two levels. First, we have Andre Holland as Henry Deaver. We have Melanie Lynskey as Molly Strand, and Bill Skarsgård as the kid. And that's how he's being referenced. Each of them have learned this amazing ability to act through silences, through body language, through facial expressions, through those silent moments that you may not appreciate or get on paper, but when you see them played out, it means so much. And again, to go a little bit of the backstory, Andre Holland's Henry Deaver, as a boy, there was a situation involving his father. He was adopted by Reverend Deaver and by Ruth Deaver, played by Sissy Spacek. And there was an incident that happened in which Reverend Deaver and Henry went out into the woods. Next thing we knew, Reverend Deaver was on the bottom of the rocks, broken up pretty badly. And Henry was gone for 11 days, only to be found by Sheriff Pangborn at the time, Scott Glenn, who we'll talk about in a minute also. There's this backstory that Andre Holland gives across as he returns to Castle Rock, of a guy who is feared and loathed by a hometown that he doesn't want to go back to, yet it's this sense of justice that really brings him back there. It also reconnects him with Melanie Lynskey's Molly Strand, who bonded as children. She has this power and this ability, and I can't help but think of The Shining when she discusses it, this empathetic ability, but it's an ability, not just she feels for people, but she connects with them, and she connected with Henry back then and still has it with him, on a point where she even says, he's a song to her that kept her level and stable, but he could also be a song that she loses herself in. And there's these subtle, quiet moments between them that there's something about this series that I have to say, pays great tribute to how Stephen King approaches children and approaches children as they get older. And I can't help but bring up It, but there are a number of instances we can discuss. But there's just the way they do it. It's just really, really amazing. Bill Skarsgård is the kid. Again, I think another fantastic job across the board. Again, these quiet moments, and he's taking on this role of being it may be a cliche, but I say it in the nicest terms. He's going to start taking on the role of being the ultimate villain bad guy, possibly, in the Stephen King universe. We know his turn as Pennywise the Clown in It was Tim Curry worthy, I would definitely say, as somebody who loved the original miniseries. And it's his moments now where he may or may not be the ultimate force and evil behind what's been going on with Castle Rock, and you'll have to see how it plays out to know specifically what I mean. But it's just those moments where you were still left guessing about whether who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. Is this kid somebody who should be exactly where Warden Lacey left him? We don't know, and that's the beauty of it. And Bill Skarsgård, there are moments where in his eyes he gives you an impression he's smiling, and you don't necessarily see it here. And that's just, again, I think really impressive across the board. The second layer of acting, though, I think we have to look at our veterans. Terry O'Quinn, Sissy Spacek, and Scott Glenn. Terry O'Quinn, not in the series in the way that I thought he was going to be, but still plays a very effective role as the late, sorry, again, told you spoilers, as the late Warden Lacey, but his narration and overview in the first 3 episodes gives a lot of historical context about Castle Rock. Sissy Spacek as Ruth Deaver, it's interesting because we see her, and on a personal level it connected, her struggling with not just getting older, but we see the early stages of Alzheimer's and dementia, and how she's dealing with it, and how it hurts Henry to see her like that. We're also wondering as it rolls along is how much of this may be also built upon the idea that whatever went on between Reverend Deaver and Henry as they were growing up, and we get the sense it probably wasn't anything good or pretty, considering what Molly ends up doing, as you'll see. So we wonder how much of that is also in play too. But Sissy Spacek, she gives a performance that's the quality of Sissy Spacek. I always think of her as coal miner's daughter, and I see her now, and it's like she still gives me those acting chills that I expect. But most importantly, Scott Glenn, Alan Pangborn, Scott Glenn's representation of one of the last true dying knights to protect what there is left of Castle Rock is both endearing, heartbreaking, and also one of the few positives, if you can say, in this episode, because there are some positives. We get a sense that Warden Lacey, on some level, saw him as one of those protectors of Castle Rock. Pangborn sees himself as that. On some level, I think Molly sees herself as that also, and how she's trying to bring Castle Rock back. But all in all, he brings this level of seriousness and how he's playing all of the situations for one simple thing. He wants to protect that town as much as he possibly can. He can't protect it from the onslaught of societal real horrors, opioid abuse, racism, domestic abuse, a lot of those issues. But against those dark forces that are existing out there in the woods and in and around what was once the town of Castle Rock, he brings a Don Quixote aspect to Pangborn that I think is just fantastic. I really do. You're also going to love the Easter eggs. Jackie Torrance, love that reference. When Henry's going through Warden Lacey's files and everything, check some of the headlines in the newspapers. You're going to see a lot more Easter eggs too. When Warden Lacey's doing the voiceover for the flashback about the incident that happened at the football game, listen to the context that he tells you about the time frame for it. And last but certainly not least, I got to say, and I know I referenced it in the writing, but overall, I feel smarter watching the show, and I appreciate it, because there are certain things you expect that will get dragged out, especially with 10 episodes, that in this series don't get dragged out. Things happen. Things take place. People get to know things. So I really appreciate that. And that's one of the reasons why I think staying with the series is worth it. 10 episodes, 3 episodes in, this strong that I can't wait for the 4th episode, even though I snuck a little peek at it already, I think was really, really worth it, and I think a great job. Not to say it's perfect, though. A couple things I want to keep in mind. The new Warden. Sorry. Warden Porter, I think it's still being played a little too much like a mustache-twirling, blah-ha-ha type person. I think they need to kind of work on that a little bit. Hopefully she dials it back to a more realistic level. Zalewski, the guard, he has that Goose from Top Gun vibe about him that gives me this impression like he's not going to be around for much longer. Anytime you start referencing, hey, I'm a new father, or hey, I just had a kid, hey, I'm starting my new job, you pretty much know that the stopwatch is ticking on how long you're going to last. And my other concern, it's not a con, it's a concern. Can they land this plane? They have set up a lot of good, strong expectations. This could go a lot of different ways. My hope is, can you land this plane well enough that makes me want to go back for the second season, hopefully, since it's an anthology and it doesn't necessarily follow directly through. That's my only nervousness. I don't want to fault Castle Rock for it. It's just something I've learned from loving a lot of geek genre programs that just get you and hook you with unique concepts, and then you realize, did they really know how to land this in the first place? X-Files, I'm looking at you.